Okay, so welcome to the webinar we're running on an introduction to Ovum at TADSummit Asia. That's Pamela and HX. So we're really lucky to have both of them presenting at TADSummit Asia, and this is a chance for us to get a preview of what they're going to be talking about. Now, the agenda for this webinar is Pamela and HX are going to introduce themselves. I'm going to give a quick introduction to TADSummit Asia so you understand what it's all about. And then Pamela and HX are just going to give a preview of some of the things they're going to be presenting during the event. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A, as we've already received several questions over email. So, Pamela, would you like to introduce yourself?
Great, thank you, Alan. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be a part of TADSummit Asia. I'm very much looking forward to it. So I'm Pamela Clark-Dixon. I'm the practice leader of the Communications and Social Research practice at Ovum within the Consumer and Entertainment Services team. I've been covering the telecoms industry for probably over 20 years now in various forms. My focus at Ovum is on communication services, both on the consumer side and also where enterprise messaging and enterprise communication touches consumers as well. So yeah, that's just a brief introduction to me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pamela. HX, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. A very good morning to everyone. My name is Hwee Xian. A little bit tricky to pronounce my name, so you can just call me HX. I'm a senior analyst with Ovum Enterprise Services team based in Malaysia. My focus is about the SME workspace services practice and some general trend analysis in the Asian ICT markets. And some of my research area are about helping service provider to develop their workspace offering and help enterprise select the best partner to meet their needs. So examples are whether it makes sense of the complex digital workspace landscape, how techs fit together, and who will emerge as potential partners. We also help service provider to identify the growth markets, like size the market opportunity and identify which segment will be the key, build a portfolio, the important technology and services identified through our research, and as well as to transform the services, advise on where to partner and where to build expertise and how to improve delivery and support.
That's excellent. Thanks so much, HX. Especially in this rapidly evolving area, understanding where to build versus buy versus partner is critical. So again, I'm very proud both of you will be able to join us at TADSummit Asia. Let me give a little bit of background so you understand where this event's coming from. So TADSummit began all the way back in 2013 in Bangkok. It focused on helping promote telecom APIs, which would soon become known as CPaaS, that's Communication Platform as a Service. Now, nearly half the sponsors of that first ever TADSummit, back in 2013 have been acquired. Many of the presenters are now leading this rapidly growing industry that's revolutionizing communications, or telecoms, if you prefer. A $1.2 trillion industry, not insubstantial. Also, CPaaS has become a building block of a far greater shift covering the move to programmable telecoms, also including unified communication as a service, contact center as a service, open source telecom software, multi-factor authentication, instant authentication, and a whole range of other market segments. It's been amazing to see its growth. What we try to do to sort of capture, like fintech has captured this sort of banking finance 2.0, we've sort of tried to use this term CX tech to try and capture all this shift, where the C stands for connectivity, communications, collaboration, conversation, and customer. The X, of course, for experience, because that's what matters, and tech, because we're focused on the enablers. So if you're a CIO trying to understand what CPaaS, UCaaS, CSaaS, chatbots, cloud communications, omni-channel communications mean to your business, and what's real today versus slideware, TADSummit hopefully will provide some clarity there. If you're a technology or service provider in this segment, you will meet peers with a track record of innovation in this space to hopefully partner and grow your business together. If you're a telco or a CSP or one of the strategic suppliers, TADSummit provides independent thought leadership in the future of telecoms and will help you in building, as HX pointed out, the necessary partnerships to grow your business. We may not always tell telcos what they want to hear, but we stand by our track record in showing the future direction of programmable telecoms. For developers and students, TADSummit provides insight to an exciting technology space that can set your career on a fast track. And for regulators, thought leaders, you'll meet the brain trust of the growth engine revolutionizing communications, or telecom if you prefer. Think of it as telecoms done in a web way. That's really what TADSummit is about. So what I'd like to do now is to hand over to Pamela and ask if you could just give a quick brief on what you're going to be presenting at TADSummit, please.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Just wanted to maybe just give a very quick overview of Ovum in terms of what it does. So we're a global data research and consulting business. Our clients include telcos, internet companies, media companies, device manufacturers, and so on. We have about 150 analysts on board working from about 20 research locations around the world. I myself am based in Australia. So we publish about 1,800 reports and data sets every year, and we also produce about 100 forecasts. So as I was mentioning earlier, I work for the Consumer and Entertainment Services pillar, leading the communications and social research stream. And within that, we track developments across telco communication services, messaging apps, social networks. And as part of that, we cover topics in the business to consumer communication space, such as A2P, messaging and communications, RCS business messaging, and CPaaS. So during TADSummit, I'm going to be providing a bit of a status update on the RCS market with a focus on Asia Pacific. So I've been covering RCS for a number of years now, almost since its inception back in about 2007. So it's my contention is if the telcos and the device manufacturers had moved quickly enough back then, telcos are known for moving very slowly, they might well have been able to forestall the rise of the messaging apps. Or if BlackBerry, for example, had had the foresight to make BBM cross-platform from the start, that the messaging app world might be a markedly different place. But as it turned out, none of that happened, which meant that we had an app, WhatsApp recently celebrated 10 years. At last official count, it had 1.5 billion monthly active users, and it's just one of 4 billion monthly active user messaging apps in the market today. 3 of those are owned by Facebook. And so the telcos have missed their opportunity in a big way. But, just because telcos missed out on providing an enhanced SMS service to rival the messaging apps at scale in the person-to-person consumer messaging market doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to miss out on the business-to-consumer messaging market. And that's what the messaging apps have also now turned their attention to. And so we now have this resurgence or this push behind A2P RCS, RCS business messaging, and there are a lot of stakeholders who are interested in seeing A2P RCS work. So my presentation is going to cover that in a bit more detail. And so one of the things I'll be talking about is some of our RCS research and data. We have RCS Forecast, for example, which were published for the first time last year. We were essentially waiting to publish those until we saw some meaningful data actually out there in the market. That started to come through. So, we feel we can, put some numbers out there ourselves. I do remember back in the day, before RCS really got started, that there were some numbers that came out from another research firm, and so the market just didn't take off that way. But anyway, we feel that it's in a much healthier position now. So these forecasts, they cover the installed base of RCS, P2P and A2P RCS messaging traffic, and A2P RCS revenues. So we just decided to focus on A2P RCS revenues at this point because that's probably where the revenues are going to come from. I think we're probably going to see P2P RCS being bundled into mobile operators' data bundles for consumers. I'm also going to draw on our enhanced telco communication services tracker, and that tracks RCS deployments globally. And then it's not just going to be just about the data, though. I'm going to be providing some analysis behind that. I'm going to be talking about what the motivations are for those players in the value chain that are engaging with A2P RCS, Google, the telcos, SMS aggregators, brands. And as you might expect, there are some similarities and some differences between those motivations. So I'll explore those in a bit more detail during my presentation at TADSummit Asia. And I'm very much looking forward to giving that at the end of May. So yeah, that's just a quick sort of recap of some of what you can expect to see during my presentation.
Excellent, Pamela. Really looking forward to that. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion there because Asia definitely, I think, is a very interesting melting pot. There's a lot more diversity there than we see in a lot of Western markets, and a lot of diversity in approaches as well. I think definitely focusing on the ATP is a more measurable, quantifiable metric than on the P2P, because in a lot of cases, customers don't even know they're using RCS when we're talking from a P2P perspective. But excellent, really looking forward to that. So HX, over to you. If you could give us a preview of what you're going to be talking about.
Sounds good. Well, actually, I have a I have a screen to share. I have some slides to share with you. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it. Oh, yeah.
Right. Cool. Right. So, my topic is going to be about when SME meet UC. It's something about how you are recording the DNA of workspace, especially when you talk about the 21st century SME and the workforce. So, so let's have a look at the B2B market from the right way up. This is basically an inverted pyramid. And where you can see is about 99% of businesses globally are basically coming from SME. So if you look at the countries here in Asia, SME is the one that basically form the backbone of a national economy. They are also contribute about 2/3 of the jobs in the formal economy. Formal economy here is basically referring to those companies that are paying tax. So, and perhaps maybe when we look into the national statistic, every country have their own definitions of the SME. So here in Ovum, we define SME with the basically using the International Labour Organization as well as OECD definition, which is any enterprises with employment size up to 249. And for North America, is up to 499. And you can see the bulk of job creation, especially coming from the businesses with fewer than 100 employees. And there's also the rise of the freelance economy. It's also rebalancing the employment demographic. Now, when we say SOHO, SME, or SMB, these are just a convenient catch-all terms for service provider, but they hide huge diversity. So basically, there are multiple facets of SME, and apparently, one size does not fit all. When it comes to communication, SME represent a highly diverse set of organization with an equally diverse set of communication requirement. Some have maybe a comparatively simple requirement that telephone-only services will satisfy. Other required services with a rich set of collaboration. Example is a conferencing, mobility, and messaging functionality as large enterprise demand. So, and this basically does not map to the business size. So, when we look into the SME is that you should really refer to the industry types and the role that the buyers or the buyer persona or the role of the SME is playing or the business are playing. So at the summit, I will also share with you about some communication trends, which is actually my next slide. Communication trends driving the business need for SME. I'm not going to read out everything, but many SME that we are seeing here is that they are investing in UC and they remain extremely sensitive to complexity and price. Okay, the next thing I will share with you in my presentation is about a 5 years forecast of hosted UC market in Asia, particularly around the SME, with size breakdown of micro, small, and mediums. And also I will pull up some survey we did last year. We call it the SME 2018-2019 SOHO and SME Insight Survey, that we survey more than 4,000 small and medium enterprises across the globe. And in Asia, we are looking into 1,311 of the SME in Asia. So from this slide, you can see the appetite to invest isn't really a problem. So the attitudes are pretty positive. We are seeing 9 out of 10 SME from our previous study believe that technology investment has a positive result. But the problem here when you talk about SME is that they have issue when it comes to digital literacy. The problem is that they don't know how to use UC or how to deploy UC. Yeah, and half don't know how, and they say the poor digital skills have basically harmed their business. And lastly, in my presentation, I will also address the transformations of the UC in the competitions, in the competitive landscapes. And potentially, this is what I'm going to do, is to share with you some user case study that we did in Ovum. Yeah, that's all for my presentation. Yeah.
Excellent. No, that's great. Really looking forward to that. And again, this is a theme that digital skills, or just the skills base, ensuring that within certain markets there are enough people that are able to deploy, configure, and enable adoption of these types of technologies have come up in quite a few discussions. So really looking forward to seeing what quantification you've got there. So what I'm going to do now is just ask a few questions based on what we've received over email. I've just checked the YouTube and channel, and we've got no questions coming through there, and I don't see anything on Twitter at the moment. So I'll kick off with some UC questions, okay, HX? And yep, we'll wrap up with some questions for you, Pamela. So first one was, how are businesses today buying UC across Asia? Is it from telcos, or is it local integrators? Is it direct from cloud-based providers, or other? And I apologize, it's a multi-part question. Is it on-premise, hybrid, or hosted? So I know there's a lot in there, but maybe if you could sort of, and I apologize, but it's a question that was asked. Maybe you could just sort of, give a little bit of indication, maybe starting with Malaysia, or, sort of, maybe identifying some markets where there's some common trends.
Yeah, basically I can see 3 questions from that one. Yeah. So maybe just give you an overview. My observation is that I think the hosted UC opportunity is basically triggering more intense competition among service provider, but it is also taking shape in different stages across Asia. When we talk about Asia, we talk about developed Asia, emerging Asia. Now, when I said service provider, so this could potentially come from telco, a local SI, a cloud-based provider, or even the traditional UC vendor that has successfully moved to cloud. For example, it's a ShoreTel Connect Cloud, Cisco WebEx team. Basically, the transition to the cloud-based services, this is what I'm seeing, is that it will continue to overshadow the markets of UC. For SME particularly, I would say the buying is more from telco and maybe on the local integrator, especially this type of service provider. They know the market, they know the SME pretty well. They speak local, they buy locals, and they can basically provide local support, fulfillment, onboarding, and customization. I think the last question is about, it is on-prem, hybrid, hosted, or cloud?
Yeah.
So I think on-prem is definitely in the declining mode. And then a hybrid is gaining strong momentum here is in Asia. The problem is that I think a lot of the enterprises, definitely they are not investing much in on-prem. But the problem is that they will not get rid of their on-prem solution because they have been invested a lot in the premise-based solution. So they may actually move to the hybrid, and then they stop purchasing the equipment, but slowly, adopt the cloud-based solution. Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's the way I see it in Asia.
Perfect. Then moving on, focusing now specifically in Malaysia. I mean, we're site, TADSummit Asia is going to be in KL. I should have mentioned that at the start. So we do have a couple of questions that are Malaysia focused. What businesses are deploying UC, and what's their business case for doing so?
What businesses are deploying UC? I think basically all businesses are deploying UC.
Cool.
Yeah, they have the need to deploy UC for internal as well as for external communication purposes, or maybe for CEBP, communication enabled business process. Okay. In terms of business case, I think it is about cost benefit. It is all about the ability to pay based on usage, OPEX friendly. Okay. The next one is about scalability. It's about the ability to rapidly scale up or down. And the third, I would say, is business agility, reducing human latency, which is about the time it takes to make a business decision. So I think the driving force behind the growth of the UCaaS market is all about the digitization of businesses and the adoptions of cloud services, be it by SME or by large enterprises.
Understood.
Yeah, and you can see the growing population, increasing number of smartphone ownership, as well as some of the few factors that would definitely boost up the APAC region in terms of the deployment.
Absolutely. Moving on to third question. We have 4, so there's definitely a lot of interest in what you're going to be presenting. And UCaaS, which is Unified Communications as a Service, cloud-based solution. I mean, that's the hot topic. Even if you're hosting, you claim to be UCaaS. It seems to be. But what will limit UCaaS adoption across Malaysia? Will UCaaS make more sense in countries like Singapore, Korea, Hong Kong, Japan?
Oh wow, that's going to be a long answer. Okay, if you talk about the UCaaS adoption challenges in Malaysia, I think it shouldn't be much about the country issue, but more on the organization direction in pursuing their business transformation. From the technology perspective, I think it is very critical to find the right deployment for the customer, as this depends on where the customer is at their digital transformation and journey towards cloud. Okay. But there are some companies in Malaysia that I spoke to. They basically have doubt in the cloud UC, mainly due to there's lack of business value of a cloud model. They don't really see much about it. Maybe they have invested a lot in the on-prem. Definitely it's a security reason. Like FSI sector.
Yes.
Maybe they think it's a lack of control of ownership. And some, I think a lot of micro to small businesses, they still see there are some cost issue in the UCaaS deployment. Some are not deploying UCaaS in massive volume due to the legacy on-prem still in place, and they rather take on a hybrid approach.
Gotcha.
And if you talk about like Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, I think I put Japan as the last one. I think the UCaaS is definitely make more sense in countries such as Singapore, Korea, Hong Kong, as they are the developed Asia, and and geographically strategic as a regional hubs. May not so for Korea, but definitely for Singapore and Korea. Singapore and Hong Kong. There are also more service providers are entering the market. Like for example, if I could take Singapore as an example. Basically, I see all telco in Singapore are offering UCaaS. Beside the market veteran Singtel and also the aggressive competitor like StarHub, M1 is also entered the UC market in 2016. I think overall UC offering tend to be quite holistic with various service bundle such as Singtel Enterprise 360.
Yeah.
And this is actually helping to shift a Singaporean SME from on-prem deployment to a cloud-based UC services. And okay, the last one is about Japan. I think the domestic markets in Japan remains more for UCaaS. Many of the Western providers support remote users in Japan, but I think few have made progress in basically in establishing a domestic user base. I think perhaps one of the barriers is holding back the adoptions has been the regulation and also from the cultural perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do see several recent developments are stimulating both demand and supply. The leading hosted UC provider is the national carrier entity, which basically they offer some hosted solution based on platform from Microsoft and Cisco.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is very common for many of the large
Yeah.
operators. And then
Yeah.
I'll wrap up with, I mean, we have a broad base of people involved in TADSummit because diversity, always results in a very interesting event. And this is from a developer, obviously has a small business.
Okay.
And the question was, why would a small business adopt UC? Doesn't the employee's mobile phone provide enough functionality?
Oh, okay. Great question. I think businesses need to remain connected to customer, be it large enterprise or small enterprise. Well, they need to take notes like schedule or maybe check previous communication threads. And I think this is extremely difficult in the SME space. So usually when we talk about small businesses, they basically have more than one person. So interacting and responding to customer demands with other employees is very important. I think unlike any SME will adopt premise-based UC solution, cloud-based solution are very affordable and offer more capability than a mobile phone. And I think cloud also offers smaller business access to new emerging technology and restriction like lack of IT staff. Small business are always having some issue with the manpower and office space and infrastructures are no longer issue. I think the employee mobile phone could be just, basically a consumer grade communication feature or freemium services with limitations compared to business grade features.
Cool. Okay, nope, that's clear. That's really good. So thanks for that. So quickly moving on to RCS questions. So Pamela, just wrapping up with you. How
Sure.
are businesses sending RCS messages to their customers today in Asia? Is it through an aggregator or through their telco? And are there noticeable differences in approach between countries?
Well, to be absolutely sort of honest, there are not that many telcos that have deployed RCS in Asia today. There's only about 11.
Yeah.
And of those, there's only one which is working on an RCS business messaging platform, so far as I know, and that's China Mobile.
Yeah.
And they were, I think, meant to have that completed in terms of development by the end of last year, so December 2018. So so at the moment, there's not a lot of RCS, or maybe none, traveling across networks, telco networks to businesses, customers today.
Understood.
Maybe in China there might be some demo stuff happening, but it's very minimal at the moment. But Japan, the three operators there, they jointly launched a service in May last year. They have A2P RCS on their roadmap. And I guess if we can look at the other parts of the world where it might be relevant to provide examples of how that's been happening, there is a mixture of traffic which is going directly from operators to their enterprise customers, and that's mainly sort of the larger telcos. So, so maybe a Vodafone, some of the Orange, I think, is doing some stuff in that regard too. But I think most of the examples, most of the demos we're seeing, they're working through aggregators. So like Open Market, for example, is pushing, quite a few examples. So Yes, but I'll go into more detail in that in the
Excellent.
presentation
No,
as
that's
well.
great.
What companies are doing.
Then second question is, what are the main RCS use cases today?
Okay, so the main ones that we've seen today so far are to do around customer engagement more than anything else. I mean, obviously there are a number of other use cases, but you know the demos that we've seen, and these are sort of ones that are quite well known, like there's Virgin Trains in the UK, so it's an off-sided example. Subway in the US,
Yeah.
you know, so those sorts of things. Use cases that just either help people to get more information from their company, or that you know are wrapped around sort of promotions and you know deals and things like that. So those are probably the primary ones at the moment.
Cool.
But again, I can go into more detail on the other use cases that are out there for RCS in the presentation.
Perfect. No, that's excellent, Pamela. And then just wrapping up with the last question. Does WhatsApp, Facebook, Line, WeChat make more sense for customer engagement than RCS?
Well, yes and no. I mean, obviously, the messaging apps, they have huge customer base, huge user bases. So for an enterprise, reach is a really important capability for them to have. They need to know that they've got reach into the market. So, you know, if you're a company that's trying to reach your market using WhatsApp, you know, you've got 1.5 billion users. Again, I suppose it depends on the market that you're in. Obviously, if you just want to run a campaign or do a customer communications service within one particular market. So reach I think is going to be important. Also, the messaging apps have are maybe a teensy bit further ahead than RCS. You know, you have Facebook Messenger, obviously doing work there. In Asia, China, WeChat is huge for all sorts of merchant engagement with users. Line, KakaoTalk, you know, those three messaging apps, the Asia market has really gone right ahead on this. So, which makes me wonder how successful, you know, RCS is going to be in markets like China, where WeChat is already so popular. But then I guess on the flip side, what you've got is that there is this fragmentation. Maybe not so much in Asia, you know, in those three countries that I mentioned, because the apps, you know, Line, KakaoTalk, and WeChat, they're so dominant in Japan and Korea, South Korea, and China. So fragmentation may not be such a problem there. But in the rest of the world, you know, there is a split between, say, Facebook Messenger and iMessage and WhatsApp. So, you know, for an enterprise wanting to reach all of its customers, it's got to try and figure out three ways of doing that. You know, and that's the case in some of the Asia markets, or probably quite a few of the Asia markets as well. So so that's one thing that enterprises have to think about, and that's what they're trying to do with RCS, is to solve that problem by having that, you know, you can build a campaign and you can shoot it out to any Android device at the moment. Apple's not quite on board yet, and you know, you will get sort of 80, you know, 70 to 80, maybe even above percent of the market. So RCS has that going for it. But then on the flip side of that, RCS is only available from about 65 operators across the world, so it's not a huge amount of places where it's available.
Exactly.
So you've got all these things to think of.
Understood.
Yeah, and other things like the capabilities that the messaging apps can provide is probably a little bit more advanced at this point than what RCS can do, although there is the capability within the RCS specification to make that a much richer engagement between enterprises and consumers. So yeah, and plus with RCS, you have a very motivated SMS aggregator market as well, very motivated telcos. They're all looking to protect their revenues. You know, they don't want to see A2P SMS go the same way as P2P SMS. So it's very important. So, you know, there's a lot of pros and cons for each, I would say. But, you know, what you're going to have, and this will be my final point, is that we have companies like CPaaS providers, for example, that are going to enable that multi-channel, omni-channel capability, where if the message can't get through via RCS, it'll go back to SMS. So, you know, there are solutions for enterprises as well.
Perfect.
That are coming up.
And that's a nice way to finish in terms of bringing it all back together in terms of using CPaaS and omni-channel support across this diverse situation. I think and Asia is the most diverse market region out there by far. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years. So that's why I'm so excited that both of you will be able to take part in TADSummit Asia. So thanks so much for being willing, and I will see you both in person at the end of May. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody else. So again, thank you so much for spending the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Alan. Likewise.